What is up, guys? My name is Matt from Edge of the Greatening, and today I got another cool, not budget, deck tech for you. It's going to be Temur monsters. Originally, someone wanted me to make a green-red monsters list, but I decided to splash blue in here for a few reasons. We'll get into that later in the video. Before we get into it, go ahead, hit that like button, helps out a lot. Subscribe if you are new. We just passed 2,000 subscribers. And click the eye icon, top right corner. You got two choices for this time. Jeskai, Hazoret's Lottery, and Mono Blue Mill, so you get to choose one of those, and then whatever one you don't choose will be the following videos deck tech. So let's get into it now. Let's go over our ramp spells first. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Spring to Mind, 4 copies of Hour of Promise, and 4 copies of Weaver of Currents. Okay, so Weaver of Currents is probably the worst quote-unquote ramp spell in the deck because it's a creature. Literally gets hit by most burned removal spells, which everyone's playing: Abrade, Magma Spray, Shock. But if you can untap with it, it's still pretty good. Spring to Mind is kind of like Beneath the Sands, except it can't cycle out. It's just the aftermath is 6 mana to draw 2 cards, which could be nice sometimes, really late in the game when you have 10, 11, 12 mana. So definitely worth the playset over the Beneath the Sands. And then Hour of Promise, you guys know how good this is. I'm glad this is starting to get recognition. It's 5 mana. You get any 2 lands. We're not playing things like Shrine of the Forsaken Gods or anything like that to hit an Ulamog. But we are using the desert text here, where we go get deserts and we get 2/2/2 zombies at the same time of getting 2 lands out of the battlefield tapped, and can be just super, super strong in that regard. Putting 2 blockers out can be very good against aggro decks. Let's talk about the 4 other creatures we are playing in the deck. We're going to be playing 3 copies of Chaos Maw, 4 copies of Combustible Gearhulk, 4 copies of Glorybringer, and 4 copies of Verdurous Gearhulk. Also, remember, we're playing the 4 Weaver of Currents. That's also technically another creature, but these are kind of our game enders, and yeah, we have a lot of different game enders. We're going to go over Chaos Maw first, because this is the card that is surprisingly good. When it enters, it just deals 3 damage to each other creature. Now, I do realize this is a very bad turn 6 play. Let's say you have a turn 3 Spring to Mind, or the Spring half. Then, turn 4, you have 5 mana if you hit your land drops. You play Hour of Promise and get 2 lands onto the battlefield, and you get 2/2/2 zombies. Then, turn 7, because you just put 2 lands on the battlefield tapped, you play Chaos Maw and it blows up your 2/2 zombies. That's kind of our really bad interactions, and it's like the best way we ramp, but this thing is just too good not to play because it is so good against aggro decks. And we have a lot of aggro decks running around: zombies, mono red, black red, and Chaos Maw does good against all of them. Just blows up their entire board, puts a huge 6/6 out. Also have to point out that this thing is especially really good against mono red because Hazoret just bounces off of it. Eternalized Earthshaker Kenra can't make this thing not block. The only thing that can help their creatures get through is an On-Crop Crasher, which could be a problem for us. However, it's just too good not to play. A removal spell in a creature is just so strong, especially in a deck that's wanting to get into the late mid-game, where there's a lot of aggro decks running around. So we have the 3 Chaos Maw, kind of against aggro decks, good to blow up a board and just keep our things alive. And the only thing this kills are, again, our zombie tokens and our Weaver of Currents. So, but it's definitely worth the 3 of in this deck. 4 Combustible Gearhulk. Most of the times your opponent's just going to let you draw with this. It's a 6 mana, 6/6 first strike that says, when Combustible Gearhulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards, which is what they're mostly going to do. But if they don't, you put those top 3 cards into your graveyard and you deal damage to them equal to those cards' converted mana cost. And we are playing a lot of high converted mana cost cards. We're not playing any Ulamogs or anything like that. but the Chaos Maw is 7 mana. Another combustible Gearhulk is 6. Glorybringer, Inverter's Gearhulk are 5. Our Promise is 5. Just a lot of things that this could hit to do a lot of damage. So if your opponent, maybe the first time you play this will let you hit the damage, but you'll get 5 to 10 damage off of them depending on your draw. And then if this just becomes a 6 mana, 6/6 huge body that draws you 3 cards. So combustible is pretty strong in a deck that plays a lot of high mana stuff. Glorybringer, you guys know how good Glorybringer is. Flying haste. When you exert it, you deal 4 damage to target non-dragon creature an opponent controls. So super strong. Again, more removal within our creatures is kind of what we want. Yeah, Glorybringer is just kind of a no-brainer. And another no-brainer in the deck is the 4 Verdurous Gearhulk. Yeah, I know we're only playing 19 creatures. There's a whole bunch of huge ones. This does good when you have a whole bunch of like tiny creatures out. However, Verdurous Gearhulk just puts 4 counters on itself at the worst, which makes this a 5 mana 8/8 trample, which a lot of red decks can't deal with. Trample is huge again with this thing. And even if you have like a combustible Gearhulk out or a Weaver of Currents, you can buff up your Weaver of Currents if you know you have a Chaos Maw in your hands and keep Weaver of Currents out of Chaos Maw, range where it can't get destroyed with Chaos Maw when it enters. So Verdurous Gearhulk, definitely worth a playset of. At the worst, again, it's just a 5 mana 8/8 trample. So definitely worth the playset of in this deck. Let's go over the non-creature spells now. We've already talked about Spring to Mind and Our Promise, but we got 3 others we're playing in the deck. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Abrade, 2 copies of Reason to Believe, and 2 copies of Nissa, Steward of Elements. I told you there was a reason we kind of splashed blue in this deck, and Nissa is definitely one of those things. Reason to Believe is kind of just a fun card. It originally was a 4 of, but went down to a 2 of. Not as good as I thought it was going to be, but could still be super powerful late in the game when you just need a creature. It can help you dig for one. Weaver of Currents is also another card we're playing with blue. But anyway, let's talk about Abrade first, a 4 mana removal spell that it can destroy an artifact. We have a whole bunch of removal in the sideboard. Don't worry about that. A lot of stuff against aggro and control. We do really well against other mid-range decks. So, yeah, 4 Abrade, pretty standard. And then the 2 Nissa, Steward of Elements. And this is just a super strong card. Her +2 is Scry 2. Remember, she's got X. We get a lot of mana in this. She's going to come out with 5, 6, 7, 8 loyalty already. You can just immediately use her ultimate, which is pretty game-ending, where you put 10 flying haste things into the air and basically just win the game that way. So, +2 is Scry 2, and then you guys know the 0 ability is look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card or creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of loyalty counters on Nissa, you may put that card on the battlefield. So, usually, if you're going to go for that ability, you do the Scry 2, you put the card you want on the, you put it on the top, but second from the top. So, next turn, you draw a card. Then that card you want to put on the battlefield is second from the top. You use your 0 ability, and there you go. So that's how that little interaction works. But really, if you can just get her ultimate off while you already have huge amount of creatures on the board, it's just game ending. 10 power in the air is really hard for people to deal with, actually out of nowhere. And then again, the 2 Reason to Believe. I originally was playing 4, moved it down to 2. It's kind of just the fun card in the deck. You could just probably replace this with removal. But if you really wanted a reason to play Reason to Believe, this is the deck to do it. The first half is just 1 mana to Scry 3. I wish this was at instant speed, but it's not. It's at sorcery. Both are at sorcery speed. And then the Aftermath is 5 mana. Look at the top card of your library. You may put it onto the battlefield if it's a creature card. If you don't, put it into your hand. So it's just like kind of like a worse version of Nissa, to be in all honesty. I'd rather just have a Nissa, but it can be good in some situations. You can play it on the same turn. Nissa, if you want to use that middle ability, you got to set it up first. It'll take 2 turns. This, you could do it on the same turn, which is a plus. But again, would just rather have Nissa. But the Reason to Believe is a really fun card, and if you can get it to work, it's actually like your opponent's like, okay, I feel you. All right, let's go over the lands now. That was the entire main board. 25 lands. We're a ramp deck. I know we're playing a whole bunch of ramp cards, but we do need the lands pretty much at all times. So we're going to be playing 4 copies of Botanical Sanctum, 4 copies of Spire Bluff Canal, 2 copies of Desert of the Fervent, 2 copies of Desert of the Indomitable, 1 copy of Desert of the Mindful, 2 Hashep Oasis, 4 Mountain, 2 Island, and 4 Forest. I'm not playing Cinderglade, which is the usual green-red dual land, because it rotates out. I'm sure Ixalan, if you guys are watching this video after Ixalan has come out, just use the green-red dual land if they have one in Ixalan, which I think they will. So, yeah, those are our lands. You gotta play a little bit amount of deserts in there. I know they enter tapped and stuff like that, but really helps out Hour of Promise. And so, yeah. All right, I already said that our sideboard was mostly against control and aggro, but our 2 copies of Hour Devastation is actually against mid-range decks. Could still be good against aggro because it's a sweeper, but it's mostly there against mid-range decks. 4 Magma Spray, really a good removal spell against aggro decks, especially zombies. 3 Negate, good against control. 3 Prowling Serpapard, basically can replace the Weaver of Currents if you're playing against control. We don't need to ramp as much if we are playing against control, so that's good at that. And then 3 Sweltering Suns against, again, aggro. We need that kind of, good early game sweeper against those aggro decks because they can get really out of hand really quickly. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, go ahead, hit that like button. Helps out a lot. Subscribe if you are new. Just reached 2,000 subscribers. Help me get to 3,000. And vote for next video's Deck Tech top right corner. I know I said this at the beginning of the video, but go ahead and do that. If you guys can't tell, I'm actually using a new microphone, so I gotta thank you guys for that because I was able to pay for it with the money I've made here on YouTube. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.